How's it going, Mets fans? It's your guy Wardy here, and we're back at it with not only our latest Mets post-game show to get into, a late-night edition here on the East Coast, right around 12:30 a.m. Eastern here, July 30th, the day before the MLB trade deadline, and we're going to have a heavy emphasis on the trade deadline in tonight's show, so that way we're not all that just frustrated with the Mets dropping this one by a whopping final score of 7-1, and not only lost this series in San Diego against the Padres, giving up 7 runs in back-to-back games, outscored already 14 runs that we have seen thus far there to 7. That is not what you want to see. Double outscore there by the Padres, but it's not only the Friars getting the job done offensively, as is the Mets and their key bats going down offensively, and Juan Soto exiting this ball game after dealing with a foul ball, and Alonso there looking uncomfortable and exiting this game as well. We are awaiting the statuses on both Soto and Alonso, and we are going to be getting into that here very shortly, everybody, but we're also going to be getting into the key topic tonight, the latest news regarding not only everything in Mets land, but specifically the latest with the hunt for Luis Robert, because not only are the Mets in the market for Luis Robert, but it is now deemed that they are, yes, the front runner for the coveted outfielder from the Chicago White Sox. So we're going to get into that latest reporting, where it stems from what is going on with Luis Acuna and his name being brought up in talks, that and a whole lot more to break down, along with the Mets losing this one by a final score 7-1. So we're going to get into all the highs, all the lows, my frustration level, and I got to be honest with you, my frustration level I think would be 10 times higher if I didn't have to be at least certain levels of concern in the case of Soto and Alonso. That's the main thing. That's my takeaway right now. Obviously, I'm not happy to see the Mets lose this series in the fashion that they did, but there's a lot more on the plate for the Mets going forward outside of dropping the series, especially with the deadline quickly approaching. David Stearns has really important moves to make, and there's a lot happening on the rumor front from now up until that point. My biggest takeaway from dropping the series right away, however, is the simple fact that by the Mets giving up 7 earned runs in back-to-back games against this Padres team, that's a terrible look, because this was a huge statement series ahead into Petco Park while you were on a 7-game heater, mind you, and you absolutely just got the job done, just did enough to sweep there in the San Francisco Giants that we saw there at Oracle Park. However, what do we see there this time at Petco? The Mets could not handle this Padres team, their resiliency, and Jose Iglesias getting the start against this Mets club. Of course, he was just as important, if not more important, than what he was yesterday, being the game-winning run there, 7-6, and the walk-off victory for the Padres. But hit that like and subscribe button on your way in, everybody. I definitely want to know how you guys are feeling. I want to get the temperature check as well here in the chat to see how you guys are feeling, not only with the Mets dropping this series, but where you guys stand on the front of the latest regarding this Mets team in the rumor mill. Because as I said, we're going to be having a key discussion here regarding the latest with Luis Robert, his connection with the Mets now, and how Luis Acuna looks like he's going to be on the opposing end, meaning that he may be the corresponding move heading the other way. So we're going to talk a lot more on that, along with what is potentially next for this Mets team here leading up to the deadline itself, everybody. So continue to hit those buttons on your way in. I greatly appreciate that. We got Michael in the chat says, I'm pretty pissed. I don't blame you for that whatsoever. Let's see this. Lindor looking dumb. Can't hit fastballs. Bases loaded. 0 outs. K. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of frustrating moments, not only with Lindor, but with others as well that we saw with bases loaded. But that fastball he took right down the pipe is certainly not something that you want to see either. And Alonso, we're waiting to find out more word on. So once we have an update on Alonso and Soto and their health statuses from this series loss here in San Diego, I will relay it to each and every one of you as soon as I can. Let's see, Robert. It's not Robert. See, here's the thing, Zach. I went a very long time saying Robert, but then Luis Robert said it himself that he goes by Robert. So I don't know what to believe, okay? I only went by Robert for a while. So I'm going to stick with Robert until I'm told universally, go back to Robert. I liked Robert better. I think it rolls off the tongue better. But at the same time, I really don't care. I just want the damn player, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. And I know many of you guys want Robert on the team, and I know some of you guys do not want Robert because maybe you think the asking price is too high. Maybe you think that he's not going to be able to be at all the guy that you guys are seeing beside me, which is certainly a nice bat to add into this Mets lineup, a multi-tool talent when he is right, a change of scenery candidate, to say the least, and a player that makes a lot of sense for the Mets when you consider the fact that Luis Robert Robert has an OPS of 966 against left-hand pitching this year. He is in the top 10 in WRC plus against left-hand pitching in all of the American League, if not all of baseball. So while yes, there are certainly flaws in his game, let's not forget the potential impact of a bat there in a much deeper Mets lineup, going from a piss poor team where he's always attacked the way that he is there to now getting more pitches to hit the way that he certainly would there as a New York Met there deep in their lineup, say as their number 7 hitter, versus having to be one of the go-to guys, if not the face of the franchise for the Chicago White Sox. All right, there we have it, everybody. Mike Puma of the New York Post. X-rays are negative on Soto. He is day-to-day. That's a good news, obviously. With the foot contusion, obviously, we're not happy to see Soto injured at all, but hopefully we're going to see him back out there. Even if it is not tomorrow, I would love to see Soto back out there for their next series, and hopefully by the time that's happening there, which will be obviously Wardy Day on August 1st, make sure you guys are there with your guy Wardy. We only have a couple tickets left, everybody, so if you guys still have interest, make sure to check it out. We will have it in the pin comment down below and in the description for each and every one of you. But that is the latest news there regarding Juan Soto, because we saw him exit this game prematurely there with the foul ball, which really sucked to see. I wasn't like overly concerned. I didn't think that this was going to be something major. At least, that was my wishful thinking. But to see this reaffirm here that he's going to be out, hopefully no more than just a game or so, is the best news possible, pretty much, if you could ask for as a Mets fan, everybody. So Juan Soto appears to be all right. And in regards to Alonso, I think he's going to be fine as well. Just again, a little banged up there towards the end of the ball game. We're just awaiting the official word on him if we're going to be getting one, because as of now, I don't see anything. As many of you guys also saw before the ball game started today, we did have some other key news regarding the Mets, and that had to do with the fact that yes, they have officially sent down Mr. Huascar Brosban, and this shouldn't come as a surprise for Brazo, who had just under a 4 ERA after what was a brutal outing for himself and the Mets yesterday. Not backing up for space was really his demise, and as a surprise to little, if you guys have been paying attention, Brosban gets sent down. Why? Because he still has a minor league option, and the Mets bring up Chris Davinsky as the immediate bullpen fit, but Davinsky's only going to be here until the Mets make their trade for a higher leverage arm, because that is inevitably happening from now leading up to the 6 p.m. deadline on July 31st that we'll be covering every step of the way. So whether it's going to be, a true high end like a Yoan Duran if we're really shooting for the stars, or a more realistic option potentially, and say one of those other arms from the Baltimore Orioles, maybe it's going to be someone from, I don't know, the Tampa Bay Rays, if the Mets really get a trade down for Brandon Lowe, which is an exciting thought that we're going to expand on more in the near future on the platform, so be on the lookout for that, everybody. And yes, there is a world where the Mets could land both Brandon Lowe and Luis Robert. Yes, everybody, this lineup can kind of drastically change at the snap of a finger, depending on what David Stearns does, and just depending on how aggressive he is now from now up until the deadline itself. You're so frustrated with with the bullpen right now, Michael. I don't blame you. There's been a lot of things to be frustrated by when it comes to this Mets bullpen. And speaking of the bullpen, everybody, let's just take a look, because listen, Shabaniah was cruising and doing his thing. Another fantastic outing for the Samoan Southpaw, where he was far from the Mets' problem, but here's what we call batting practice. And just like there in Huascar Brosban, everybody, the same exact thing's going to happen with Jose Butto. Jose Butto is going to get the boot from this bullpen soon, or the Mets are going to keep him in here and they're going to actually trade him away. I don't think Butto is going to be in this bullpen that much longer. I think what the Mets are going to be doing is they're going to be adding at minimum one quality reliever, if not multiple. And that alone is exactly why I can see this Mets team falling in the category of really looking good and having one of the stronger bullpens out of all bullpens available in the National League post-trade deadline. But it's going to come at the demise of some players. And right now, Huascar Brosban is not only being sent down to AAA Syracuse, but as Carlos Mendoza said pregame himself today with the media, they're stretching Brosban out. He's going to be more of a lawn man. And why are they stretching Brosban out? It's because the Mets are fully intending on trading Paul Blackburn. And we're going to expand more on that in content tomorrow. But to give you guys a sneak peek, what we know is that the Mets really don't have a spot for Blackburn at the moment. Brosban, they like the stuff more, obviously, and they actually have more faith in Brosban being stretched out as a multi-inning guy there and lower leverage versus even a guy like Paul Blackburn. So the Mets are fielding offers on Blackburn as we speak. Brosban, they're trying to stretch out a little bit because they're trying to see if they can get more length out of him, because the Mets really don't have that kind of multi-inning reliever. And Rico Garcia, they have to make a decision on too as well, when you have to either DFA him or you have to part ways with someone else. And Rico, you don't want to part with after Buddy has like north of 9 scoreless innings so far in this Mets bullpen, and he's been electric in doing so. With the bullpen, Chris Davinsky, who just signed back with the Mets there on the Major League contract, he allowed that one-earned run that we saw before the ball game ended. And on the offensive end, this is how the game ended, everybody. As you guys see beside me, was the commonality between pretty much almost every single batter in the lineup today is that no one, not a single effing man, knew how to hit a baseball for the most part. This was a brutal game on the offensive end for the Mets, and that's why I was pretty checked out from this one early. I just did not have good vibes about it. You know, when you get that early vibe before a ball game starts where you're like, oh yeah, this is going to be a doozy, this is going to be a good game. I did not get that feeling today. And that's important why I didn't even bother. I usually live tweet throughout the ball game. I didn't even do that tonight. There was something about tonight's game that had bad juju, and I just did not think that's going to bode well whatsoever for the Mets. So let's get into this, everybody. I want to pull up and show you guys, not just show you, but break down here the Mets not only losing this ball game 7-1, but now where do they stand when it comes to postseason play? Because the Philadelphia Phillies, we know, are right behind them. But as of now, the Mets are still in first place. The Phillies are at 61 and 46, so the Mets still have at least a half game, if not a full game on them that we are aware of, as the Mets have themselves 62 wins on the season and counting. It would have been great to see them get the series win here in San Diego. It was very frustrating and disappointing to see it not happen, especially in the way that it did. It really does bother me, the commonality with the Mets going into San Diego and always having guys get hurt. I mean, it happened a couple of years ago. We saw the Mets get beat up with a lot of hit by pitches, and even though Eduardo Escobar hit the cycle in that series, there was just a lot of bad juju there. Now the Mets back in Petco, more bad juju. Just not loving what I'm seeing right now, and this is not to discredit the Padres whatsoever. They're one of the best teams in the National League, no doubt, but this was a series and a game in particular that I was anticipating the Mets to really be more locked in and neck with, but they just absolutely plummeted. Mets just could not get the job done. Hitting with runners in scoring position was yet again non-existent for this club. The Mets had 0 in that category. They went over 6 as a matter of fact, and they left 8 on base. So we're going to get into breaking down this ball game. Fantastic. You'd love to see it, everybody. And guys, if you do not know, let me relay once more. We have our official Wardy Day coming up here in just a day or so now, a day and a half rather, August 1st, Mets San Francisco Giants. Pat's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Richie from Knicks Media and Jets Media is going to be there. We're going to be having an absolute blast here with a fantastic group of Mets fans that we're going to be doing an on-field pregame photo op with, as well as a $18 drink voucher you guys are going to be getting. We're going to be hanging out in the left field lounge. We're going to probably be doing a post-game live show there. It's fireworks night. Luis Robert may be making his Mets debut there because the Mets don't play on the day of the deadline, I don't believe. And if we acquire him on the day of the deadline, then bam, there you go. Robert will be making his debut probably the next day on August 1st. So guys, if you want to hang out with your guy Wardy, check it out. We have not even 7 tickets now left available. So if you guys still want access to hang out with me, and this will be the first of many events that we do at Citi Field, everybody. So be on the lookout. Just the start of this, I promise. Check it out with the tickets that we have available in the live chat and the description down below, and thank you guys kindly for that. Let's guys offensively for the Mets between Nimmo, Lindor, and Soto. Not a whole lot to love here as they all go down in order. 1, 2, 3 there, having to do with Nimmo and Lindor striking out, and then Soto flying out, and that's that. And who was starting in this one there for the Padres? It was Mr. Burgett, or Burger as they love to jokingly call him from the Padres fans that I know I'm buddies with. He has a 2.78 ERA, and that comes after going 4 innings of one earned run baseball against this New York Mets team. As we see in the bottom of the first there right away, Nando rips himself a single, and then after 2 outs, Jackson Merrill makes it 1-zip Padres as he rips a single there off of Shamania. So the Simone Southpaw was greeted rather rudely by his former team and now foe there and the San Diego Padres, as we then get set for the second inning where Pete Alonso would be robbed a little bit thanks to a great play by Jose Iglesias in the infield for the first out of the inning. Then we would see Jeff McNeil, everybody. Jeff McHitz would get himself on there with a 1-out single. McNeil is on there. Then Mark Vientos would ground out, and Ronnie Mauricio grounds out, and that is that. As we then get on to the bottom of the second, everybody, Jose Iglesias with his 9th double of the year there. Jake Cronenworth with a ground out there. We would see Bryce Johnson then would reach on a fielder's choice, and then Elias Diaz would ground out as well. So Sean Manaea gets out of that jam unscathed, thankfully, and it had a lot to do with what we saw. A fantastic job with the Mets getting the relay in time where Jose Iglesias was out at home because Shamania had the effortless, and again, no doubter flipped there at home with no hesitation whatsoever. That is what Bulldog pitchers do. No hesitation, no overthinking, just get that thing to home, and he did, and that got him out there initially for what would have been the second run of the ball game for the Padres. Little did we know, though, that the bullpen would get absolutely decimated later on in this ball game. Brett Beatty would fly out everybody for the first out of the inning. Then Luis Torrens with the walk. Brandon Nimmo with a flyout. And Mr. Lindor then strikes out, and that does it for the top of the third. In the bottom of the third, we see a 1-2-3 there for the Padres as Shamania finally gets in a little bit of a groove there. He strikes out Nando, and he strikes out Manny there for the final out of the inning. And Michael, yes, I'm aware I'm going to be talking about him and a whole lot more and content for you guys tomorrow, so make sure you guys are on the lookout for it. And also, apologies, folks, my contacts are actually getting really dried out right now. I'm exhausted, if you guys can't tell. It's almost 1 a.m. Today was a very long day for myself after not getting much sleep, so I apologize if I look like I'm running on fumes a little bit. It's because if I'm being quite frank, I am. I'm doing the best I possibly can right now. But as we get there to the top of the fourth, everybody, we would see Pete Alonso with a walk, then McNeil with the flyout, then Vientos there would reach on the fielder's choice, and then after Vientos reaches for its 2-on, 2-out for Ronnie Mauricio, Ronnie would strike out there on that called strike 3 call, and that does it there for the fourth inning. In the bottom of the fourth, we would see Jackson Merrill fly out, Xander Bogaerts ground out, and Jose Iglesias pop out, and that does it there for the inning. In the fifth, Brett Beatty on what a walk, Luis Torrens with a single, Nimmo with a walk, and afterwards we would see Lindor strike out swinging because Lindor, having bases loaded, just could not get it going whatsoever. After we would see Lindor strike out, and that was a brutal at-bat for Francisco. Star-studded Starling Marte decided to step the hell up the way that he did with a key sac fly there to tie the ball game 1-1 initially. After it becomes 1-1 for the Mets, we would see Alonso unfortunately pop out, but not before, however, the Mets now tie the ball game 1-1, getting us set there for the bottom of the fifth inning. In the bottom of the fifth, it's a 1-2-3 there for the Padres as well. Then in the sixth inning, we would see Mark Vientos again continuing the hit spree because Mark is really locked in right now. Love to see that. Couldn't come at a better time, but the great question now is it too little too late? Vientos with a 1-out single, everybody. Then Mauricio grounds out. Beatty would ground out after, and that does it there for the inning. The Mets can't get anything else going. In the bottom of the sixth inning and the 7-1 defeat against the San Diego Padres, Nando gets on with a walk, but thankfully, shortly after, Nando is out trying to steal second base. Another fantastic tag there after a great throw by Torrens to Lindor, and Nando's out of here, everybody. And that does it for the 1 inning, the 1 out. Then we see Luis Arraez rip a single, and thankfully Nando was not on base, or else he gets right there to what we would see in third base. Let's see. Is Vientos the next Miguel Vargas? I hope that isn't the case. But if he gets traded to the White Sox, then yeah, that's kind of what the case is going to be. I will say this, though. Vientos in a White Sox uniform, I think, would look actually, like, good. I think, you know how there are certain players that, like, look right in uniforms? I feel like he would take on the black and white look really well. The problem, though, at the same time, is I don't want Vientos to leave the Mets at all. And even though I don't have any ill will with the White Sox, outside the fact that they're such a stupidly ran organization from their ownership down, I really don't want to see Mark parted with unless it really is a trade that makes sense enough for the Mets and that they're bringing in a player that's going to help them not only now, but for the next couple of years. You know, you want to make sure that you try to get a proper return on investment if you're going to trade away a bat that can impact games and impact them significantly at any point, the way that Vientos certainly did this past day with his grand slam, his first of the regular season there, and I believe his 7th of the year or so. But Arraez with the single after we would see the throwout on Fernando Tatis Jr. Then Manny Machado would line out. And then Jackson Merrill rips himself his 3rd triple of the year, everybody. And that makes it 2-1 Padres. After the triple, we would see Xander ground out, but not before the Padres get the lead in this one, and they would never look back from there. In the 7th inning, everybody, we would see Adrian Marjon come in, and I knew that that was going to be the Mets' demise. Because when it comes to the Mets on handling a flamethrowing southpaw, No bueno. It has not been getting the job done. Terren strikes out. Nimmo then with the ground out, and Lindor with the ground out. Nobody's getting a hit whatsoever there on Morejon, and that does it there for the top of the 7th. In the bottom of the 7th, Jose Iglesias there with a single on the fly ball that we saw to McNeil. Then, and mind you, Jose Iglesias had really good at-bats against the Mets today. Not at all surprised that this was Jose's World Series. Made sense, especially after the Mets didn't bring him back. Those things were inevitable. Woody, some people are saying that Gregory Soto turns his only move. Thoughts? They're idiots, Emerson. There's going to be more moves happening, I promise. If there's one thing I can promise each and every one of you, it's the fact that the Mets will be making more trades from now up until the July 31st, 6 p.m. Eastern trade deadline. The idea that they won't is so silly in my opinion. But I digress. Iglesias gets on with a single. Jay Cronenworth rips himself a single as well. Then Bryce Johnson would strike out. Then Elias Diaz unfortunately rips himself a double, his 7th of the year, everybody. And that opens the floodgates for the Padres. It makes it 4-1. Then Luis Arraez gets on there with a walk. Then here comes Chris Davinsky coming in for Budo because, oh my God, of course we want Chris Davinsky to go in and face the 300 hitting and well over 800 OPS Manny Machado, having a tremendous season. And what does Manny do? He absolutely decimates a baseball for his 20th home run of the year. That makes this game go from bad to worse. It was 404 feet on a changeup hunt right down the pipe, 108 off the bat there. And mind you, this was 82 miles per hour of a hanger. I mean, Chris Davinsky couldn't have served up a greater meatball on the same day that he signed a major league contract with the Mets. Sometimes you really just hate to see it. But Manny Machado made it 7-1. As we then get to the 8th inning, we would see a 1-2-3 there for the Mets. Nothing happens offensively for them. And the bottom of the 8th inning, Luis Acuna came into play defensively at center field, and he made a gorgeous catch there that we saw on Xander Bogaerts from the line out for the first down in the inning, and what very well could have been one of, if not the final play of Luis Angel Acuna's tenure as a New York Met. In case you guys are wondering why I said that, we have key reporting that we're going to be getting into shortly that has everything to do with the Mets and potentially parting ways with these players. And on the pitching end, everybody, as we do the quick grade, Sean Manaea gets an easy, no hesitation, 6.5 out of 10 from your guy, Wardy. I thought Manaea was fantastic. Honestly, I would even argue I'm going 7. Yeah, I'm cheating. I'm going 7. And the reason why I'm going 7 is that even though he didn't give us a lot of length, Manaea is getting better and better, and he was far from a problem for the Mets, and I love the fact that he didn't walk any batter for the Padres today. I thought he was pretty much as good as one could look, especially for a guy who faced your early adversity the way that he did by giving up a run there in the first inning or so. So Manaea was fantastic. Jose Budo was dreadful. Chris Davinsky was not great either. The Mets bullpen tonight, in that 3 innings total, they're going to get a whopping score of a 1.5. They were horrendous. I did not like anything about the Mets relievers today. 2 guys that I could be more than content with never seeing pitch in this Mets bullpen again, as a matter of fact. And that's not a personal slight on Davinsky or Budo, but I want to see the Mets upgrade in this area, and I want to see less of this nonsense that's kind of dictating ball games where the Mets otherwise could have found themselves there potentially in the winning category of a pitching duel. Instead, their bullpen is their demise, and then they go on to lose this one 7-1. On the hitting end, again, not a lot to love at all when we look at this Mets offense. Very frustrating when you look at this Mets offense, too. They were out-hit by the Padres 9-4 in this one. Brandon Nimmo is down to a 258 average and a 778 OPS. Lindor's at a 248 average, 748 OPS. Soto's at a 248 average, 870 OPS. Taylor is at a 204 average, 558 OPS. Give me Robert yesterday already. And Mr. Starling Marte, 287 average, 782 OPS. You guys are really underestimating how much of an impact a guy like Robert can have for this team as well. That's why I'm going to talk a lot about that here shortly, guys. Be on the lookout for it. Afterwards, we would see Acuna, 239 average, 578 OPS, potentially the end of the line with him as a New York Met. Alonso, 261 average, 848 OPS. McNeil, 251 average, 809 OPS. Vientos, 234 average, 660 OPS. Mauricio, 234 average, Vientos, 234 average, 660 OPS. Mauricio, 244 average, 753 OPS. Beatty, 230 average, 696 OPS. Terren's 218 average, and 599 OPS. So that is what you got on the offensive end, everybody. If I had to give the Mets an offensive grade today, I'm not going any higher than a 1.5 out of 10. They are just as bad today offensively as the bullpen was. Equally horrendous. 0 for 6 for runners in scoring position. Nothing to show whatsoever. And yeah, that's going to frustrate me along with every other Mets fan for the Mets who went on a 7-game win streak. You love to see that, but you do not love to see the Mets go out and pretty much roll over in game 2 because of their bullpen, especially in the case of a Petco Park Padres team that we know is one of the better ones in all the National League. Very, very frustrating to see that be the case, in my humble opinion.
So that's good news. That's good news there. So he's day to day. We'll see where we at for tomorrow, if he's going to be available for the lineup or a player during the game at some point.
I know that occasionally you take an X-ray and then a couple days later, after swelling goes down, you got to check it again. Are you guys confident that this is a negative X-ray, or could that be a situation like that?
Yeah, I was just talking to the trainers, and I asked the same questions. Are we planning on, doing some more imaging? And as of right now, the answer is no. X-rays, and let's see how he progresses his day to day. So, yeah, that's what we got so far.
Carlos, what's the concern?
Thought that if he comes in super sore tomorrow, he could be an IL guy. Like you're confident he's going to be able to avoid that.
It's too early to tell. I mean, usually when you get it like that, and he got it good. It's usually maybe a couple of days. We just got to see how he responds and he wakes up tomorrow morning, and we'll go from there.
And there's no sore tomorrow. He could.
Any idea how lingering this could be?
No, I think it's gonna be good. I think we're gonna be good. We just gotta get the slowing down. Whenever it's slowing is down, I think we're gonna be fine. I mean, the X-rays are negative, so it's a good sign. So we just gotta wait for the slowing to come down and go back to where I'm at.
What's your pain level right now?
It's actually numb. I don't feel anything right now. So definitely it's getting a little stiff, but we're gonna see this morning.
All right, guys, so those are the latest quotes from both Carlos Mendoza, Mets skipper, and Juan Soto on the front of Juan getting hurt there with obviously that foul ball earlier in the ball game. Hopefully, things don't get much worse there as he wakes up tomorrow after the game from this past night, and we'll go on from there. And yeah, I know Alonso 4 for his last 41. Not ideal, Mickey. Not ideal. Hate out here. That being 1:09 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 here right before the day of the deadline. And as you guys can see here, we have Anthony DiComo on a piece here with Mark Feinsand talking about the front runner for Luis Robert and Mr. Luis Angel Acuna. And as we go into this report, let's deep dive right into it, everybody. It states the following. Luis Robert's recent renaissance at the plate has a number of contenders considering a move for the center fielder, though sources said Chicago's asking price remains very high. According to sources, the Mets have been one of the more aggressive teams in their pursuit of Robert, with one source taking it to another level by calling New York the clear frontrunner. The Padres and Phillies are among the other teams said to have interest in Robert. But as Bob Nightingale of USA Today stated here on this channel, no later than a week ago, everybody, for our Mets trade deadline preview with Bob Nightingale, he stated that while the Phillies like Robert, what he knows at this point is that the Mets like Robert more. Furthermore, we would see in this piece, everybody, Robert has struggled offensively for most part of the last 2 seasons, with the 27-year-old that we have seen, who actually turns 28 on Sunday, has looked like more of his 2023 All-Star self as of late, hitting 6 home runs with 19 RBIs and an 853 OPS in his last 29 games dating back to June 10th. My colleague Mike Petrelio recently broke down some of the the reasons as to why Roberts is having this resurgence. Furthermore, he's owed $5 million for the rest of the 2025 season, with $20 million club options for 2026 and 2027 with a $2 million buyout. The White Sox are looking for a solid return for Robert, who remains an above-average defender in center field. Infielder Luis Angel Acuna is one name being discussed in trade talks actively between the Mets and the Chicago White Sox, a source said. What is very interesting about this reporting, everybody, is the fact that David Stearns has done a fantastic job on keeping these hush-hush. Yet there have been a decent amount of things that have been leaked now leading up to the deadline. And this is not just leaks of like, oh, it's clear hearsay, there's no fidelity to it, there's no chance that this is actually real, where a lot of us are kind of expecting a Luis Robert trade to happen, at least one of Robert or Cedric Mullins. I think we'll all be kind of surprised if that doesn't happen right now. And as I broke down in my video breaking down how the Mets and these talks are heating up, this is exactly what I was referring to. This is before this report came out that the Mets are even front runners, mind you. But what I did reiterate is that outside of Vientos, can the Mets make a trade happen for Luis Robert without having to give up Mark himself? And what do I have to say about that? Yes, they absolutely can make that trade happen, and it will be centered around Luis Angel Acuna. And if you have to add a top 10 prospect, throw in Blade Tidwell and get the job done. It shouldn't take much more than that. You can argue that that's an overpay based on club control as well as the fact of Tidwell having electric upside with the velocity. Now, I think we can all agree that Tidwell probably doesn't profile best as a starter in this organization, but I think a lot of fans can get behind a trade where Acuna is the one infielder you part with. You know you're going to keep a guy in Robert beyond the 2025 season. You're going to bring him in for the $20 million club option more than likely, especially if he performs at all in similarity to what he has done this past month. And now the Mets will then have some stability there in the outfield between offense and defense should Robert continue to perform more of the old that we have seen leading up to the deadline. Well, we anticipate him to be in a very deep lineup with Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, WardyNYM, just to name a few. And mind you, this is all potentially without trading Vientos. But here's where things get even all the more interesting. And the Mets make a trade happen not only just for Luis Robert, but Mr. Brandon Lowe from the Tampa Bay Rays. What are you going to do with Vientos then? That is the greater question, in my opinion, because if you don't trade Vientos, yet you bring both those bats in, I will almost be very surprised, because Lowe profiles better as a DH option than a guy that you want at second base all that much. He's not a good second baseman. You want more of McNeil or Beatty at second base, given your options. So if you're going to bring in Robert, which is then going to limit more of what we would see the playing time of McNeil in center, unless they really toy with them between center and left field. But again, I think that's more wishful thinking at best. Where's the fit for Vientos for a guy that is not going to play at the hot corner much at all with both Mauricio and Beatty here if you bring in both Lowe and Robert? And I'm not saying that bringing in both Lowe and Robert is a guarantee, but the possibility of it happening is certainly, it's there. It is clearly there. The Mets are in the market for both right now for different reasons. And the Lowe aspect is more of that replacement for Jesse Winker because, listen, Carlos Mendoza just spoke to the media again today, guys. We're going to talk about it more tomorrow, but he pretty much made it known that, the Mets are not at all in good position when it comes to Jesse Winker. Like, he's not in baseball activities yet, nor is Jose Siri. Two guys I think the Mets know aren't returning this season. All the more reason to make sure that you add the reinforcements, the replacements, and no better replacements for Jose Siri and Jesse Winker than a Brandon Lowe, who's one of the best hitting second basemen in all baseball and who was an all-star this year, and a Luis Robert, who's a clear change of scenery candidate. It just makes too much sense if you ask me. So that is what I have to say about that, guys. But expand more on Luis Robert. Let's get into the following, as you guys can see here. And let me reiterate, the Robert numbers that you guys see down below are off, but they're only off by right around 2 games. Robert has played in 86 games now at least, and he has 1 more home run. He has a batting average right around the same, and same thing else when it comes to all the other numbers. I know they're not sexy, but going back to what Mark Feinstein just reiterated there in his latest piece with Anthony Como is the fact that over this past 30 games or so, Luis Robert has looked more of old and is clearly a guy that wants to get the hell out of Southside Chicago. Can you blame him? He's not going to go anywhere when it comes to winning. He's not even going to sniff it again. And Robert started to blossom in his young career when he was a part of a playoff contending White Sox team. You know how demoralizing that must be to start your career more in the playoff category, and then when you finally get that taste, you then go into a complete rebuild? Of course that's demoralizing. Of course you want nothing to do with that team. Regardless of the millions that are spent on you, not everyone's going to have that same mentality, especially when there's a lack of proper leadership in the clubhouse. Robert would be gaining so much actual knowledge of the game by being with such a talented Mets team, as well as discipline. There's no discipline in that White Sox clubhouse whatsoever. I mean, there's very little of it, it feels that way. I like their new manager and Will Venable. I think he's a very nice young piece for them. The Mets actually interviewed him for the managerial role a couple years ago, as a matter of fact. I bet you guys didn't know that. If you did, shout out to you. But the point I'm trying to make is that with the exception of the start of this season, there has been a lack of accountability held in that White Sox clubhouse. There are just so many reasons as to why a guy like Robert can come in and blossom, especially knowing how deep the Mets lineup is already. He doesn't need to be the saving grace. All we need him to be is a league average hitter, and there's a great opportunity that he could be well above that. And then you get into amazing base running with 26 stolen bags, already the most of his career this season. He had 23 last year in more games. He had 20 the year before that in like 140 games. Robert gets faster as the man's getting older. Things you absolutely love to see. Let's see here in the chat, though. We got Wardy. Where do you think Robert Jr. would bat in the lineup? I think he would make a lot of sense anywhere from 5 through 7. I think that's exactly where you would want Robert. And I think it goes also a little bit in hand with what you do with someone in Vientos. Because if Vientos is trading, if Vientos is out here and is traded, then you're probably going to want to go about the offensive configuration a little differently. But even then, I mean, McNeil is more than fine if he's getting his reps at the 5 spot. Robert, though, I think starting him out in the 6 or the 7 is perfect for him, because by putting him in the 6 or the 7, you can really just kind of let the lineup lengthen out and let him get the pitches that he wants to hit. I think that would bode well for him versus putting the pressure on his shoulders right away. No need to throw him in the 5 spot right away. I know that's what you would be kind of trading for. That's what you're looking for in someone like him. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you ease him in and get him acclimated. Don't have Buddy get scared of the bright lights there in the big city that in this case is Flushing, Queens. You know, certainly contrasting to what he has going on in Southside Chicago with this White Sox team. But what he has going on is a fantastic home run swing. And as I reiterated earlier, and I'll say it again, guys, he's top 10 in WRC plus, at least out of all the American League, if not all of baseball, when facing left-handed pitching. You want to know how good Luis Robert is against left-handers this year? Buddy has over a 960 OPS against left-handers this year. What is the Mets' biggest demise offensively this year? And outside of runners with scoring position, it's facing left-handed pitching. The Mets are one of the worst contending teams in all of baseball when facing southpaws. All the more reason to bring in a guy like Robert, who basically can be like a Sterling Marte, but even better for you when it comes to basically being what Marte used to be, in the sense of being more of that 5-tool talent. You know, this is a younger version of Marte, and it's actually fitting as we say that. You know, especially when I look at, you know, Marte and Robert, I feel like that they would be the types to get along well, as Robert doesn't really have too much of an expressive personality, at least from what we've seen exemplified in the White Sox clubhouse, and he's kind of cool and collected the way that Marte is. For that reason, I could see them, you know, kind of getting along well. You know, Soto gets along well with Marte and direct hand because of that exact reason, but he really kind of loosens him up and makes him more, you know, himself, shows off his personality more. I think Robert would just bode so well with not only Soto, Marte, Lindor, obviously Alonso there, Nimmo, everyone when you look at this team, I just think it would be as seamless of a fit as they come. And I also selfishly say this as a Mets fan, as someone who's been heavily advocating for Robert for at least two and a half years now. I mean, I watched this guy intensely in his 2023 breakout year with his 38 home runs. I see the potential here. And I don't think that this is a player that you should, 1, give up on too soon, or 2, not chomp at the bit for when you're given an opportunity the way that the Mets are right now. This has all the makings to be an opportunity for the Mets to pull off the Dodgers. If you're saying, Wardy, what are you talking about? What I'm saying is it's finally time for the Mets to go out and be that team to buy guys with a high upside, but just need the right fit and the change of scenery, and for that change of scenery to be in Flushing, Queens with this New York Mets team. The same way that so many players each and every year land in LA and go from nothing to something. The same way that you see so many fantastic players ultimately churn out there in Atlanta. The same way goes for some more analytically minded organizations. But the Mets need to go out and be this team now. Now's the time to do it. Robert is probably the best example of how they can make this happen. He has a higher upside than Cedric Mullins. He has a lower floor than him as well. That is 100% true. But the Mets are just in a position right now where I think that they can take that little bit of risk, because at worst, if Robert doesn't perform well, you still have time Tyrone Taylor, right? And if Jose Siri is alive before the end of the season, then you can consider him as well. There are still options the Mets can choose from while still having a successful season, even if they don't land anyone of significance in center field. But why not go out and have a little risk, go out, push out big time, and try to get yourself a Robert. So we'll see what happens on that front. And thank you guys for the kind words too. Joel, everyone else, we got you guys in the chat I see here. Thank you. And Juan, yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. I think it makes sense. Soto said his leg feels numb. Is that normal for? Yeah, I wouldn't be worried in the case of Soto. He's going to be fine right now. And he said he feels numb right now. That also is probably because they are making sure that he's not in excruciating pain or anything like that too. I'm sure they gave him some stuff. But regardless, getting back into Luis Robert and Luis Angel Acuna talk, Luis for Luis is what the trade would be, everybody. Cespedes was real power, correct. And you want to know how significant of a trade this could be? This would be the most significant trade the Mets would have since what we saw there in Yoenis Cespedes in 2015. Name me one batter that's a better slugger with his ceiling than Luis Robert going back to Yoenis Cespedes in 2015. Oh, yeah, you can't find one. Javi Baez, isn't it? Jesse Winker, isn't it? Joe Panic, isn't it? Who is it? Can someone tell me one single bat the Mets have acquired in the past decade that has as much power potential as what Robert would have as a deadline acquisition? Daniel Vogelbach? Yeah, maybe for the first month. Yeah, Joe Panic, exactly. If you know, you know. Hey, Anthony Bender. But from the Rays, if you brought in someone like Lowe, as well as a reliever, what kind of reliever could you bring in from Tampa? Well, you got Pete Fairbanks, you got Garrett Clevenger, and you have an abundance of other guys. And the reason why I think a trade with the Rays just might happen, everybody, what team has David Stearns made more moves with than any other team since becoming president of the Mets club a year and a half ago? Don't think too hard about this. Don't think too hard about this. The answer is the Tampa Bay Rays. So, knowing the Mets already have that proper rapport and familiarity, you'd have to think that there's an increased likelihood that they can get this deal done. So, Lowe, we're going to talk more about in content tomorrow. We broke him down in a video this past day, so check that out separately in case you guys haven't already. But the Mets seem like that they are primed to have not only a good traded line, but they may F around and have one of the best traded lines out of any contending team. But they have to go out and put their foot down. And David Stearns knows that. David Stearns knows the expectations this year. He knows the fact that the Mets purposely didn't spend a certain amount of money heading into the season, so they had financial flexibility leading up to the deadline of a $15 million plus gap. That is going to bode well for them in this scenario right now, guys. I'm telling you, don't be surprised. Be ready when the Mets F around and make some really interesting trades. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be all the guys that we're talking about right now, but I do think that's going to be in the realm of you're adding an outfielder, you're potentially adding a Lowe if it's really in the right interest of the organization. They don't have to overspend trade asset-wise too much. You're going to be landing a starter, but that could vary a decent amount as to who it is. And the bullpen can go in direct hand if you do a package deal with a team like Tampa, a team like Miami, or if you do something else that's separate from along those lines. I like Miguel Cabrera a lot, but I don't know if that'll happen. I think Cabrera's the asking price is a little too steep for the Mets right now, even though I would love him. I think Cabrera is a guy that I would probably want more than Sandy, as crazy as that may seem to say. I like Miguel Cabrera, not Miguel, Edward Cabrera quite a bit. I really do. I like David Bednar as well, Rebecca. Yeah, David Bednar definitely falls in the category of being a nice quality reliever, but apparently the Pirates are asking for like top prospects for David Bednar so they can kick rocks. If you think I'm trading a top 5 prospect for your coveted reliever, I got a bridge to sell you, my friend. I'm not giving up a top 5 prospect for your David Bednar, just a year removed from having his yip season. Miss me with that nonsense. Hell to the no. How about that? I like Bednar a lot, but these prices are going to need to obviously drop. and they're going to change, and we all know they most certainly are going to vary. But Mets fans, I definitely want to know more of your thoughts on the front of Luis Robert, as well as what is happening with Luis Acuna, as he appears to be the biggest piece that could be traded, maybe the most likely infielder of this group that could be dealt by this Mets team. But rest assured, there's going to be a lot coming out from now up until the deadline itself, everybody. We're going to be live covering everything the day of the deadline, as well as having a fantastic day there at Citi Field the next day for our first of one of many Wardy days that you guys are going to see there at various points throughout each and every season. Don't the Rockies have some quality relievers, Wardy? They do have some, most notably Mr. Bird, but I don't see the Mets really making a trade there with Colorado. That's another one I'll have to see to believe. But folks, hit that like and subscribe on your way out if you guys find yourself enjoying this Mets content. Be on the lookout as we have a lot more that's going to be pumped out in the near future throughout all day that you guys are going to see on the 30th, all day long live streaming on the day of the deadline. A lot of content there from Citi Field itself on August 1st, and we will go on from there. Before we get out of here, everybody, and what was still a frustrating 7-1 series loss for the Mets against the San Diego Padres that we saw there dropping the first few games of the series, let me leave you with Wardy talking about something he recorded in the past, getting us something about the near future. Let's go Mets, baby. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Now let's hear from your guy again. It's Wardy here, and as you can see, we are at gorgeous Citi Field, and folks, you can get the ultimate, the prime experience with your guy Wardy at our first ever official Wardy Day. August 1st, Mets San Francisco Giants there for the evening game. The day after the MLB trade deadline, you, your friends, your loved ones, select Mets fans will get the ultimate experience with your guy Wardy. Not only are we going to hang out at the ball game together, but folks, look at the seating. We're going to be live here in the left field lounge. You guys will be able to chop it up with your guy Wardy. We're going to be debating as to who's the best pitcher of the rotation outside of Kodai Senga. We're going to be talking about who's the next best prospect to get called up. How do we feel about the trade deadline acquisitions? And guys, as you get back up here then, we are going to be giving you a $18 drink voucher, and with that drink voucher, you guys are going to be able to hit up the bars that we have right outside of here. So easy, so accessible. Again, prime seating, a truly fantastic experience. Our first ever Wardy Day here at Citi Field, guys, where you will get a chance to hang out with your guy Wardy. And the best part, too, not only is it this amazing lounge in left field that you guys will hang out with me, but we're going to be on the field, pre-game access there for a group photo op. So I hope to see you, all you amazing Mets fans there. Click the link if you guys haven't already there to check out our available tickets, and let's go Mets. And not only are we going to be sitting here throughout the course of the ball game, you guys can also check out these seats that we have access to all here in the bar area here, right at the Milagro, where you guys can utilize your $18 drink voucher. Again, this is going to be at Wardy Day, August 1st, 2025. Oh wait, yeah, almost forgot. It's also fireworks night. Bang! Hope to see you guys there. Thank you guys again. Have a fantastic night. And Alvin, thank you for the donation, but not a chance in heck the Mets would trade for Marcell Ozuna from the Atlanta Braves. Have a great night, everybody.